Raised on Radio, I think, represents a major shift in Journey. The sound is a lot different than what we've gotten from past albums, and I think the dynamic in the band is also a lot different. Welcome back to Pixel Positive Music. This is the ninth episode of our 14-part series covering the history of the band Journey, one album at a time. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the other content that we have coming, including future album reviews for Journey, as well as Freedom, which is their newest album coming out next week, and other music. So, let's get into Journey's Raised on Radio. Raised on Radio is a really fun album to me. Might be a bit controversial, but Raised on Radio is one of my favorite albums from the band. I think it's probably my second favorite album from the band. This album has a much different sound than what the other albums have. This album is a bit poppier. It's a bit funkier. This is more akin to like 80s pop rock. And I think we see some elements of 80s pop music in these songs. And I think it works really well with what the band was going for. I mean, we get some really great tracks on this album. It's just a really fun album to listen to. It's different, though. There's some major differences going on here. We have a major lineup change. For the first album in the band's catalog, Ross Valerie is not involved at all because he, along with drummer Steve Smith, got fired by Steve Perry. Steve Perry was given control of this album. The band agreed to let him produce the album, and he took Steve Smith, who recorded drums on 3 different tracks, off the album, and then Ross Valerie he had not done any work for the album. He was also taken off, and they were both fired from the band. So we end up with a different rhythm section on this one. We've got Randy Jackson on bass. And Randy Jackson is interesting because he is back for Freedom, though he is not in the band anymore. Again, he left the band after Raised on Radio, rejoined the band a couple of years ago before Freedom, and has since left the band again. Randy Jackson's got a much different bass playing style than Ross Valerie. You can definitely hear it in these tracks. If you look for the bass, you'll hear it more. It's a lot louder, it's heavier, it's funkier. I would say just overall a stronger bass lines. Not to say that Ross Valerie is bad. It's just different. And then we have Larry London on drums. And then on the tour, Mike Baird, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, would play drums on the live set. So, different lineup. Steve Perry, Neil Shaw, and Jonathan Cant, of course, are still in the band. They're the main creative force from the band anyway when it comes to songwriting. So, still have the same writing team here. This is just a much more Steve Perry-led album. It is very comparable to Steve Perry's solo album, Street Talk, which, again, it's a very fantastic album as well. If you listen to Street Talk and then you listen to Raised on Radio, which is how I did this review, you will see, or you'll hear, rather, similarities. They're very similar albums in the way they sound. Street Talk is even more 80s pop, I think, than this is. But this is more of a blend of a Steve Perry solo album and a Journey album. And notably, the album was actually supposed to be called Freedom, which is funny because now Journey's newest album, which comes out next week as of the time of this recording, is called Freedom and also features Randy Jackson. So it's a pretty interesting situation there. The album opens with Girl Can't Help It, which is a phenomenal Journey song. I think it's one of Journey's more underrated songs. I think actually this whole album is fairly underrated. Escape and Frontiers are so well known, and Raised on Radio, I think, is just such a fun and interesting album. But Girl Can't Help It is the opener here, and it's a great opening track. It continues that trend of having a very strong opening track. Start with a very strong piano line. You get that funky rhythmic bass right away. And you know right away, this is a different album. This is a different Journey sound. We're not opening with bombastic synths. We're not opening with a melodic, catchy piano riff. This is a different piano line here. And so Girl Can't Help It is just phenomenal. It's very catchy, has a very singable chorus, has a great guitar solo that leads to a really killer ending section of the song. I mean, it's just an all-around great track. And then we have some other notable tracks on this album. Positive Touch is the second song on this album. This is like your quintessential 80s track. We get like a strong bass line, we get prominent piano again, and we get a saxophone. Yes, a saxophone is on a Journey record. It was like a big thing in the 1980s to have saxophones. I mean, a lot of bands did it, lots of solo artists. Everyone used saxophones in the 1980s, and you hear it here. So Positive Touch, I think, is one of the most representative tracks of what this album is. You listen to Positive Touch, and I think it could be the only track you listen to from this album, and it'll tell you what you need to know about this album, because it represents this album so well, I think. I love Positive Touch. I think it's a great track. I wish the band would do it live more often. They very rarely play this one live. I think it's a really fun, upbeat track. A lot of these songs on this album are very fun and energetic, and they're quick, and they're upbeat. We see that with the third track, Suzanne, which I think is another notable track. It's an up-tempo, like, love track. It's got very heavy, like, 80s sounding synths. Again, strong bass. You get that throughout the album. Really incredible vocal work from Perry on Suzanne. And then we have the hit of the album, Be Good to Yourself. This is another live staple, radio hit. This is another major hit for the band. Be Good to Yourself is a track that a lot of people know. It's an arena rock song. It is Journey doing what Journey does. They make an incredible arena rock track that the audience can really get into. It starts with great piano. It's very loud and bombastic and uplifting. It ends with a killer guitar solo. I mean, Be Good to Yourself is a great track. It's, like I said, it's a very popular live song. They've done it live every tour since Raised on Radio. A lot of tours they open with it. Sometimes they end with it. It's a great opening track. When I saw Journey live, I've seen Journey live a couple of times. When I saw them live back in 2014, they opened with this track, and it was perfect. I mean, this is a killer opening track on the live set. And then we've got I'll Be Alright Without You, which is a beautiful ballad. I'm assuming it's about life after a relationship. If I'm just looking at this one surface level, it's a beautiful track. It's very it's kind of slows things down. This is probably some of my favorite guitar playing from Neil. I think it's my favorite guitar solo from Neil. The guitar solo at the end is so melodic and just follows the song so well. So I think I'll Be Alright Without You is one of Neil Schon's best examples of being a melodic guitar player. His guitar playing is never overwhelming, even though sometimes Neil plays really aggressive and really fast. His guitar playing is never overwhelming. It always does what it needs to do. Sometimes he slows it down and he plays with the beat. Sometimes he goes really fast and gets crazy. And this track, he just plays a beautiful guitar solo that just absolutely complements this track. So, overall, Raised on Radio is fun. It's a very interesting album. As I've done these reviews, this is number 9. This is, so far, it's probably the most interesting one because it's just so different than the stuff before Journey's commercial era and then the other albums during their commercial era, Escape and Frontiers. This is just so different. Something that's kind of been made clear to me now that I've listened to these albums in succession, Escape, Frontiers, and Raised on Radio, which are like the 3 big albums from when Journey was like really famous and at the height of their fame and their career. These albums are also different. Their Escape was like a more traditional just rock album, a radio rock album. Frontiers had more I think, sci-fi, like synthy types themes or sounds going with more like interesting themes. This track or this album it's quick, it's loud, it's fun, it's just different. I mean, this is a 1980s album, absolutely. I mean, they all are obviously, but this one sounds like the 1980s, and for me, that's a strength. For some people, I can understand why that would be a detriment, but for me, it's part of what makes Raised on Radio such a great album, such a fun album to listen to. If you look up some footage from this tour, the band was really fun to watch on this tour. The addition of Randy Jackson was a great live presence. He really gets into it. If you look up live videos of Girl Can't Help It, or I'll Be Alright Without You, very great performances, very high quality recordings. And this is Steve Perry's final tour with the band. I mean, this is it. This is his last run with the band as far as live performing. And after this album, Journey goes on hiatus for a decade, nearly a decade. This album came out in 86, they toured through 87, and then Steve Perry decided to walk away. He needed time off, so the band paused. They wouldn't come together until 1996. So we will be covering that album in the next episode. That'll be an interesting one. Trial by Fire is a very, very interesting album for the band. So that'll be the next episode. Also, we'll have a video up on Sunday night for Journey's new track, United We Stand. They will be releasing that from Freedom, new single. I will also I'll have a video up tomorrow for The Way We Used to Be, or rather today when you'll probably be watching this. So you can expect that too. That was Journey's first single from Freedom. I never reviewed it because I didn't have a YouTube channel back then. So we'll review that one just to make sure we're covering everything from Freedom. So if you guys haven't, please hit that subscribe button, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you think about Raised on Radio. I would love to hear your comments. I am so happy with all the support this channel has gotten so far. The Don't Give Up on Us video is about to cross 1,000 views, which is just blowing my mind. I never thought that anyone would watch this stuff, and it just means the world to me that people are taking the time to watch my content. I just love talking about music. I love Journey. I love 80s music. I love most music, and I just love talking about it. It's fun to talk about, and it's a way to draw attention to some of this older music that a lot of us weren't alive for. So definitely hit that subscribe button so you can join the Pixel Positive Music community. Trying to build a community that just allows people to talk about music. We can have fun, just talk about music, and avoid all the toxic crap all over the internet. So if you guys are interested in that, hit that subscribe button. Check out some of the other videos. If you haven't seen the other parts of my History on Journey series, definitely check that out. There will be a link at the end of the video to that playlist, so definitely check that out. And I will see you guys at the next video.